A ver.
Hola. Hola. Salcedo Morado. Hola.
No, entonces es de mi YouTube. Yo creo que esto. Vale, damos esto y ya está. Perfecto.
Hello, everybody. Welcome.
Claro, sería...
Está apagado.
Está apagado, pues se acopla.
Sí. ¿Se oye? Se está
Ya,
un
pues,
poco
sí.
acoplado, sí.
¿Cómo apagamos?
Tiene que haber dos micros funcionando. Hay dos micros funcionando.
Sí,
Sí.
tiene que haber dos micros funcionando, pero este está apagado.
No, es este micro que la retransmisión sale por ahí. Sí.
El micro está activado, pero el sonido no está. Del propio canal de ahí.
Ah, aquí.
Eso es.
Ahora.
Eso es.
Ya está.
Hablamos normal, sin micro.
Sí,
Vale.
sí. Normalmente es peor. Aquí no.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming here. Today we have with us Dr. Ricardo Larraínzar. He's head of the medical division of traumatology and orthopedic at the Infantile Neural Hospital here in Madrid, in Vallecas. He has a broad experience in concerning the bones, the fragility, the fracture, and the bone in general. He has a engineering perspective also from the point of view of eye structure, the behavior of the bone as a structure. So before giving you the floor, I want to thank you for being here, for giving us this interesting talk. So thank you very much, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm really glad to be here with you. It's an honor to be here, and it's a very challenging situation for me. My name is Ricardo. I'm an orthopedic surgeon. With me is Javier Montoya. He's a hip surgeon as well. He does all the 3D impression in our hospital. And I've been involved in research with engineers for the last 15 years. What I have learned is inside every orthosurgeon, there is a small engineer. And inside every single engineer, there is a surgeon, believe me. So it's a very nice combination, and we have the commitment to share our experience. So when I met you, I found your research project really exciting, kind of disruptive. So I propose them to be here and just to give you a lecture regarding bone metabolism and bone structure from not only from the clinical side, but linking it to where we can research and enjoy an experience. So the name of this lecture is Osteosymphonic Concert in B minor bemol, allegro moderato. And the reason for this is because, yes, we know a lot of things about bone metabolisms, Bemol, I don't know the word in English for bemol, so I will change into Spanish. Tiene bemoles, que la gente piensa que el hueso está muerto. And most of the even health professional surgeons, they think that there's only a mechanic point of view, and they avoid all the biological point of view. And allegro moderato, it's a musical term, which means that we have to be quiet in a hurry because there are a lot of things to do, and I want to have time to discuss and with you and try to answer any questions that you will have in the future. So let's go inside. Doesn't work. So we know that once we get old, we broke our bones. So what's the matter? Why we should give this such an important? And because it's not only a broken bone. It's not that. It's everything surrounding this fracture. This fracture occurs in a frailly patient, and once you have one bone frailty fracture, you're taking tickets for the lottery to have another fracture. And the more fractures you have, the more mobility and even mortality you're going to get at the end of the game. So it's a really, really huge field for research, the fragility fracture. It's not working. Okay.
I'll stay there.
So, and it's very interesting disease. Osteoporosis is a very interesting disease because it's the only, maybe it's not the only, but because I think it's really important, I will say it's the only disease which the range of age range between 55, which is on a women in a perimenopausical stage, to 104 years, which was the oldest patient I've ever done surgery in it. So it's a huge range of age where you can have this fragility fracture. And through all these years, you will have some different fractures, but they all have in common that are related and linked with the bone fragility. Distal radius, vertebral fracture, humeral fracture, and the queen of the fractures, hip fracture. Usually the hip fracture is the end fracture. And the next step could be the opposite hip fracture or the patient dies. So there is a lot of opportunities to take care of these patients and to try to help them. It's very rare that when we do surgery in a hip fracture, the hip fracture was the first one. It's very rare. So when you pay attention and you look carefully to the medical record of the patient, usually you will have this kind of warnings of this situation. So this is what we do. We put surgery is really fun, believe me. It's the best work that you can have, the best job. So this is what we do. We place nails inside the bones to try to fix the fracture, and then natural does it work and makes the bone healing. But as you can see here, this patient has an opposite fracture, so it's the never-ending story. It's really linked to the longevity. We have gained a lot of years in Esperanza de Vida, as expecting life. We have gained a lot of this, but we have to fulfill it with quality. That's the problem. This picture with the grandmother, the mother, the son, and the doctor, 4 women for every different generation, was very, very rare 20 years ago. Nowadays, it's not so rare. So we are living more years, but we have to fulfill of quality these years. And there's other things, prosthetic fracture, peri-implant fractures, bilateral fractures. So it's a nightmare. What is coming is like a winter in Game of Thrones. Winter is coming, fracture is coming. A lot of fractures is coming. So it's time to do something. And even because most of the people see the orthopedic surgery like a competence. They think that we are competent, and somehow we are competent. We fix things with nails, screws, plates, but we are working with a very frailty wood. So there's a lot of mechanical failures regarding our job. So if any one of you are interested in bone fragility as a clinical disease, that you are really in a good way, because the field is extremely huge. So there's a lot of things that you can do. And when there's a lot of things, usually there's a lot of money. Well, maybe not so much money, but there's money to invest. And we have to do a multidisciplinary approach to the problem. You cannot do it by yourself, because you work in a very theoretical frame, but you have to go to the field, to the patient's bed. We work in the OR, we do surgery, but we cannot do this very deep research in the future. So we are committed to link ourselves. So the first message, and the most important one, and I will be just very happy if you, when you go out, that you have this inside your mind, is that bone is a live tissue. Never, ever, ever think that the bone is dead. It's only bone. Next one. This is the closest you have been, I bet, the closest you have been to the bone in your life. This is a skeleton. This is not bone. This is a skeleton. This is what reminds when you are died many years after you die. But this is not the bone. This one. The bone is a very, very live tissue. So when you see this skeleton, then you have to look at the microscope and say, okay, there's a very complex architecture of the bone, and we look there. There's a lot of cells there, living cells that interact between each other, and this makes a microenvironment, which is known an osteoma, and it's a very, very, very active metabolism active zone, where we have different cells that we are going to talk, but mainly we have three cells. The osteocyte, which is surrounded by bone and linked with the other osteocytes. And the life of an osteophyte must be very worried. They can move, they can do nothing, they stay there, surrounded by bone. Maybe a little contact with the fingers with his neighborhood. That's the only thing. But the most important thing is that the osteophyte is the one who knows what's going on the surrounding. So the osteophyte detects these old microfractures, and then what I picture in my mind is I'm an osteophyte, then I have a microfracture, my glass has moved, it's like this, I can't move, so I need help. Then I told you, Paco, can you bring some help? But I'm surrounded by bone, by hydroxyapatite. So then you can, Maria, you are the osteoclast, and you have to remove everything. And then you can, and you put my glasses on, perfect. So there are three different cells. The osteocyte, which is on control, the osteoclast, which removes the bone, hydroxyapatite, and the osteoblast, which is the one who builds new bone. And this environment is working every day, every minute, since you have born. In 1 year, all your trabecular bone has been substitutes, and your cortical bone, it will be completely substitutes in 10 years. So there's a lot. So from the biological perspective, I like bone because it's an anisotropic issue. In this forum, I don't have to explain what anisotropic means, so I'm really happy to that. But it's very interesting condition to suffer this tension forces and make it. Next one is heterogen, and this is very interesting. Trying to avoid to have a fracture. You know that if a material is really homogeneous, then it can break easily than an heterogeneous tissue, and the next one. And it's dynamic. And this is interesting. It's the dream of an architect. Imagine that you building things, building those buildings. You can work with a material that has these conditions and can be auto-regenerate. It's awesome. It's like the bone as a structure is a really good one. So this is known, this mechanical and biological metabolism activity is known as remodelado. I don't know what's the word in English, remodelado. Remodelation could be remodelation. Where remember there are two cells. The osteoclast, the biggest one, the biggest cell, which removes bone, and the osteoblast. Next one. And usually they show us that this is a fight between the good and the bad. The bad is always the osteoclast, and the good is the osteoblast. But it's not a fight between the good and the bad. It's more a matter of balance. We have both cells to be in a good shape. So that's why I like to compare this bone metabolism to an orchestra. There are all different musicians, and they have to play all them together to have a very nice symphony. Next one. Next one. So for me, osteoblasts are all the violins. They are really the top one in the orchestra. They can do those amazing solos that every single one gets shocked. Oh man, what he did. But you need all those trams and things that they are there and they make it good things. And you will not ever support a solo concert of violin. You need the other ones. And which is really important is the arpa, the trams, all these things that they are there. Do you think that maybe they don't play a good role in the orchestra? They are just using these plates and then pshing, pshing. Do you know? Have you ever realized that the guy who's doing this pshing has to study 10 years to do this pshing? So really has to be important. Nobody studies for the 10 years just to do this ping. So this is what we call the hypothalamic and hypophyseal work. So everything is linked. Your bone is linked with your brain, your cortex through this hypothalamus hypophysis system. So everything is connected. And we need the orchestra director. Now I think that you know it's the orchestra director, the osteocyte. Here is the cell who is in control, so everything. So let's have a view of the non-life composition of bone. Non-life is like the musicians, is the chair where the musician lies, is the instrument that he's playing. And we know that most of the inorganic composition of the bone is hydroxy apatite. Almost 70% of the weight is just calcium. And there's a protein which is collagen type 1. 90% of the proteins are collagen. So essentially, the non-life part of the bone is hydroxyapatite and collagen type 1. This makes this what's the word in English for that? Scaffold makes a scaffold. This is the scaffold. It's made by hydroxyapatite and collagen type 1. And of course, that we know there are different types of instruments, different types of furniture. There are different types of patients. Next one, please. So regarding the bone fertility, of course, there are genetics regarding problems, epigenetics, what we eat, the way of life we have, any comorbidity that we have, toxic habit, more especially alcohol and smoke. Both of them, alcohol and smoke, it really influences the bone. And, of course, the age. The older you get, the more probability you will have. And the life. As there are different types of orchestra, there are different types of cells, next one. But remember, osteoblasts, osteocytes, and osteoblasts, next one. But with these types, with different orchestras, this rock orchestra or this symphonic orchestra, they have in common is that the rules of the game are really clear for them. They can read the music on the partitures. So this one, and this is played by the osteotype. So is the orchestra director. He is the only one who can. So remember that these microfractures are good for you and keep you in a good bone health. Next one. So how does the osteophyte knows what's happening here? How does the osteophyte? Somewhere, next one. For sure, there must be a mechanoreceptor somewhere. If you want to win the Nobel Prize, this is a good research line. For sure, there's a mechanoreceptor, but nobody has described it. But we know that there has to be, because in the bone there are forces, there are mechanical conditions, and there are biological response to that. So somewhere has to be a mechanoreceptor. Nobody has described it. If you have a clavicle fracture and we just put you on a brace, 3 months after that you will have here a very huge bone healing, like this size of bone healing. And 2 years after that, it will shape and get the same shape as the previous one. Someone has to know that. And this is because the way we move our arms make these forces, and the osteocyte recognize these things. Next one. The most common theory is that this mechanoreceptor has to be related with the bone circulation. So go back. So for sure, when you have a fracture, somehow you're interrupting this normal blood circulation inside the bone, and this is what causes all this recognition of the conditions of the fracture. So I give you a clue. If you want to win the Nobel Prize, look at the circulation of the blood inside the bone. It will be there. So, and everything is linked. They all are interconnected. So essentially, I don't want you to pay attention to this slide. I just want to transfer you a very clear message. There's a lot of activity here. There's a lot of activity here. Never ever think that the bone is dead. So we know that the orchestra director communicates with the musicians just using this wood. But how does the cells communicate between each other? Next one. There are two main ways: the rank ligand way and the other one, MT. The most known one is the rank ligand way. Next one, please. And it's a matter of balance between stimulation and nerve. The osteoblast creates rank ligand, and this rank ligand binds the receptor on the osteoblast and stimulates. The next one. But as well, the osteoblast creates the osteoprotegerine that blocks this receptor on the osteoblast. So there's a question of balance between the rank ligand and the osteoprotegerine, OPG versus rank ligand. We have to have them very well balanced. If one of them is superior to the other, then we are in a problem. We will have a very weak bone or very strong rib, and we don't want to have a very strong bone because it becomes kind of ceramic, and ceramic is frail. So both of them, the rank ligand and osteoprotein, has to be. The other way that the cells communicate with each other is the DMWNT, which essentially it's a very complex intracellular signal pathway where the more beta-catenin you have inside the cells, the more bone you're going to produce. So there's a lot, but there are two drugs that usually are being under research to try to block this receptor in order to get this more beta-catenin inside the cells so we can build up more bone. So remember, everything is interlinked. And as I told you, this has to be in a balance. this environment has to be balanced now. We don't want a very strong, a very very mineralized bone that reminds us ceramic. We don't want a weak bone that reminds us. Next one. So remember, this is our Oslo Symphonic Orchestra. Next one. Let's go and talk a little bit about the osseous to bone resistance. Remember that the bone is an isotopic material, is dynamic, that can be auto-regenerate, can auto-adapt to very challenging situations, and can adapt to everything. I want you to introduce Lucy. This is Lucy. Lucy is your grandmother, grandmother. The first human ever in the planet, found in Ethiopia, Africa. And this is bone. No, this is skeleton. This is not bone. This is skeleton. This is the skeleton of Lucy. Next one. And this is the reparation of your grandmother. This one. We have to admit, that our evolution has been really good. We have to admit that. But if we compare these two skeletons, next one, please. The only thing that we have done is just grow up. We just grow up. The difference between this nice women's secret model against Lucy is the size. We have this grow up. And this is because, next one, every single life form in our planet is affected by gravity. So that's the reason why our bone has been in a continuous experimental research project for the 60,000 years. So if we have 10 years, it's because we have 10 fingers, it's because we need 10 fingers. If we have any apophysis that we have in the bone, has a function there. The next one. So in this evolution picture, which one? We have been working and having a reaction force against the gravity, and that's what makes our shape. So even you, with the opposite on there, now you are having gravity forces. I'm having gravity forces here. So remember, this is a normal bone. This is an osteoporosis bone. Hey, I can see it's very porous. Maybe the corticus is not fixed, but the shape, the lines, the forces, everything is there because it has to be there. So if you want to mimic the nature, these are the lines that you have to follow, because the nature is in advance 60,000 years from you. So if you want to go, try to copy nature. This one. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, as long as we are having all these separates and all these things, and maybe in the future we will become really obese patients, and maybe our bone change, but I will not be there, even so it will not be my problem. Next one, please. So resistance is a balance between quality and density. Then we can measure density of the bone, but it provides very gross information of the situation. It only provides me how much hydroxy apatite is the bone. The interesting thing is here, the architecture, the microlations, the mineralization, and the remodel of the bone. Next one. So just a brief view from the very macro, the bone is a macro, and the very nano, this collagen, this hydroxyapatite. Let's have a view. Next one, please. So as a micro, we must distinguish between two different bones. Next one. The cortex bone, which is the surrounded bone. Next one. This is the one. And as long as we get older, this cortex get more porous with these holes here. And the older we get, the more holes we have. And of course, as an engineer, now you're thinking, okay, this is a very weak structure compared to this one. So regarding the cortex resistance, the most important factor is the cortical porosity. The older we get, the more porous we have on the cortex. Next one. And the trabecular bone. Next one. If we look at these Romantic buildings, they are very small, not more windows, small windows, because they couldn't build this in height because the buildings get on. Next one. When they will be able to have these nice windows, when they learn that we have to interconnect the walls between them to make this high building. So more or less it's exactly the same that we're doing here. Now we have huge skylines made by glass, which is not very good. And this is because it's very linked between them. And this is the way we are now building our buildings. So once again, we have to match nature. Next one. So this is the trabecular bone, this is the macro of a vertebra, this is the trabecula, and this is this one. So everything, this trabecula has to be very interconnected. Next one. But if we lose the connections, 10% of the connections between them, we will lose the 70% of the resistance of the bone. Next one, please. So, summary: trabecular resistance is influenced by the trabecular connection, and the older we get, the more trabecular connection we lose. And porosity, cortical resistance is influenced by the cortical porosity, and the older we get, the more we get old. Next one. So, this is where we are. Genetics are going to play a role. We know that one of the most clinical risk factors to having a fracture if your mother or your father had suffered a fracture, which makes all the sense. Essentially, you are half your father, half your mother. So essentially, it makes sense. So for sure, I bet you the genes are going to play a role in bone fragility. In early diagnosis, patient-specific treatments assisted by genes are going to play. For sure, I think that predictive models based on AI are going to play a role. We have to mismatch the nature, but I think that AR is going to play a role here. So I think that we are in a very challenging situation to get out of our comfort zone and let's go to the magic zone where everything happens. And that's the reason why I'm here. I want this joint between your group and our hospital to be successful. Next one. So hopefully after this lecture, I not only based on bone as a structure, but a living structure. Next one. A lathe addition where it combines biology and mechanical. This has to be very well balanced, and every single factor matters. You cannot just look one isolated factor. You have to. You need to see the big picture of the bone metabolism. Next one. And the more information is based on clinics that patients are doing, and we have to look to the clinics for why they are broken and where they can come. Next one. And our enemy is powerful. Remember, this is the cascade of fractures: wrist, breast, humerus, hip, back. So it makes a lot of sense, even just to help yourselves, to research in this field and try to probe this cascade of fractures. Next one. But the good thing is that we are here. We are clever, You have the enzymes. We have the knowledge, so it makes sense to me that we join each other. So this is our hospital. It's a small hospital, but we have experience in research in this area, and I hope that we can find a pathway where our groups links together. So this was everything from my side, and I'm really excited to try to answer your questions if you have any questions. Thank you very much.
Is there any question?
Yeah.
I mean,
Thank you for your talk. I have a question. For analysis of bone, do we need to also use for study interaction analysis?
I'm not sure you get the question.
I mean, because you said that sometimes there is a fluid in the bone, and for those cases, we need solid interaction analysis. Yes.
it is from an engineering viewpoint, I think. But your question is.
Yeah, my question is, it's a multidisciplinary area of study, okay?
If that's what I don't get.
Yes, I'm afraid that the question is from an engineering viewpoint. You are asking about interaction because the fluid, the blood, and the structure for us.
It's a area of study, fluid solid interaction. You know about it? It's an engineering field of study.
I don't get it.
Yeah, he's a physician, he's an engineer.
but no, I'm a very real physician, so if you can translate what's his question, maybe I can.
Sí, pues lo que está diciendo que hay interacción de fluido y estructura en el hueso, que se la miráis por el proceso de control.
Okay. For sure, there is an interaction. For sure, as a physician, we don't pay attention to that, but for sure, has to be interaction between the blood and the structure. And I think the mechanoreceptor has to be there somewhere.
Yeah, here right now I see many papers in this area for biomedical engineering. It's yes, it's a hot topic, and maybe it is interesting to analyze in bone. I don't know right now about it, but
Interesting and challenging also.
Yeah.
And challenging because we are dealing with living matter.
Yeah.
It's not a engineering material.
Yeah.
Very challenging. More questions?
You said that the bone adapts to several things, including the lack of use. So I'm not sure I feel that correctly. So does that mean that, for example, if I go for a run every day, the bone, the muscles in my leg will get stronger? Does that also mean that the bone, like my femur, they will also get stronger?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. The main limitation to send astronauts to Mars is once they go back, they will never be able to live under the gravity condition. The biggest research, maybe the biggest, but one of the biggest, is the NASA, is the MCA. So that's absolutely right. The worst sport to do from the bone perspective is swimming, because when you're swimming, you are unloading your gravity conditions. So the best thing that you can do, and the best advice I can give you, try to do everything that make you like small steps: dance, combat, walk, run. You're absolutely right. I mean, the more you use the bone, the stronger it's going to be. And it's good because then you're going to have microfractures. When you're running, you're having those microfractures, and this stimulates the normal renovation process and makes you in a good form. We know that we put you on a plaster, because you have fracture, whatever, we put you on a fracture, and when we take out the plaster, your muscle is absolutely weak. And if we perform densitometry on your bone, for sure, I bet you have lost almost 20% of your bone just because you haven't used it.
Any more questions?
Well,
Yeah.
Okay, you do first.
Thank you very much for the talk. It was really interesting. Have you had any experience using patient-specific implants? So in our group, we study metal 3D printing, and I know that this is one of the big applications for metal 3D printing. Have you had any experience with 3D printed implants or anything like this?
I don't have a personal experience because usually we use this patient-specific implants regarding tumors, where you have to remove a huge amount of it. And I personally don't do oncological surgery, so I don't have. But it's used in a clinical pathway, this patient-specific program where you make some CT scan or whatever, then you go to the aperture, you make a reconstruction, and then you do the impression, and you place that in the patient. So it's a reality nowadays. In our hospital, we have experience with 3D print using like to guide us in a surgeon, like making osteotomies and all those things. Or we make impression of the bone, and then we bend the plates and the metal wires so in order that we can save time, surgical time, because this modeling the plate is done in the print. So for sure, 3D makes all the sense in the clinical way by day. But there is a strong regular change. There's a big regulation change regarding this. 6 years ago, it was extremely easy. You have your own CT printed, and you print and you put this in the patient. Nowadays, especially in Europe, there's a strong regulation, and you have to look. I discussed with you guys. You have to look very carefully at this regulation. Otherwise, you're lost.
More questions? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm shaking, man.
Is there drills in bone?
If
Drills, if I pronounce it right.
Growth?
Yeah.
grown, you mean grown when you
Yeah, it's increasing or decreasing the size of bone growths. Or
In life, you mean?
sorry.
In your life, when you get
Yeah, yeah.
older.
no, the peak, you get the peak when you are 20, 22. From that moment, we know that it goes down. Indeed, your colleagues that say that osteoporosis and fragility fracture is a pediatric disease. Because when you are growing up as a child, and you have a good health, good feeding, drinking meals, and having all this, then you will have problems in 80 years. So the peak of the bone, it's when you are 22, 24. From that moment, it goes down, especially in women after menopause, and in men when we get old.
Okay.
The only thing that you can do is sports. The only thing that now, with your age, the only thing that you can do is try to avoid alcohol, smoke, and do this dance, run, steps, and keep your bone in good shape.
We are not going to order some wine in the.
Like everything in nature is a matter of balance.
But that's okay. I agree.
Because wine has resveratrol, and resveratrol is good for the body.
I think only red wine.
Well, red wine has more resveratrol than your wine.
It pairs with coffee. One more question?
Thank you for talking. My question is, such implants, like what we said, might cause the secondary harm for the elder people because they have poor ability of recovery. So yes, our idea is to use some implants or something to enhance the.
I'm hearing you.
Enhance the poor mechanical performance of the bones, but actually the process of implants is actually causing the damage of the bones. So they cannot
recover from the surgery. So is that really necessary to use any surgery of implants to improve the ability of the bones?
Yeah, this makes all the sense, and I'm involved with the group trying to answer your question because remember there's a cascade of fractures. So picture yourself having a hip fracture on the right side, and this is your normal opposite side. So for me, it makes all the sense that you can use some. This is not invited. This is the challenge that you have. There's some kind of implant that can be preventive implant. That for sure has to be a minimal invasive surgery, not huge surgery, not a prosthesis, a 3D implant. It has to be like a small nail coming here, or maybe a small plate coming from here with maybe one screw coming from here, or maybe another one coming from here. Using your material, that's what I think, using your material, and this could be a research line to try to prevent the opposite fracture, the contralateral fracture, but to use that in a clinical pathway, you will have, the ethics committee will ask you to have a very strong test to say that yes, you are in a high risk or not. Otherwise, you will harm unnecessarily the patient. So there are two levels: the theoretical level where you can work, and then the clinical level where we have to work in a very strong predictive model. That's why I said that EA is going to help us say, okay, you are at risk, you are not at risk, we place this device on you. And the other things that the other challenge is, okay, that's one. This is what we use nowadays. Every single morning, every single hospital around the world. You have a freak fracture like this. This is one of the fragments. This is the other fragment. We place them all together, matching more or less the normal geometry. And once it's there, we just place a nail here, screw in the middle, and screw here. I'm sure that most of this material is unnecessary. I'm sure. So maybe the other path lane to research is to replace these huge metal implants for another more biomechanical implants that can match these things. So there's a huge field to research.
Last question?
It's my field of, I like this field of study. My question is there any way to make bones to be self-healing? Or is there any kind of bones that are self-healing?
You mean to accelerate the bone healing process?
No, it's recover after damage or some problem.
It does itself, no?
Yeah.
It does itself.
Yeah, well, it does itself, but we can accelerate this healing, this bone healing process by using electromagnetic fields. We know that the electromagnetic fields can help this bone fracture. Under drugs, we know there are anabolic drugs that accelerates this bone healing. We can interact with the bone using drugs, but all them are systemic drugs. There are no local treatment for this fracture. This is one of my personal research lines, to have a local treatment for very specific conditions.
I mean, in future, we can see a day that we don't need surgery for bones. I mean, just, external treatment. You know what I mean?
I don't think so. Somehow, for sure, you have to provide a very fast fixation to allow the patient to walk. We know that the most important predictive factor to survive, I'm not saying about some kind of handicap, I'm saying that survive is to try to walk as soon as possible. So I'm sure that if you have a hip fracture and then I give you some medication and let you stay in the bed, for sure you will die. It's a matter of time. We know the clinical most important factor is to allow. That's the reason why now we're working on these implants to try to put a lot of hardware there. We want to make a huge construct here, and you have the fracture, we do the surgery, and the day after that we say, let's go and walk again. Because the sooner you get out of the bed, the more probabilities you have to survive. To just give you some numbers that are really impressive. 5% of the patients who suffer a hip fracture, they die during the hospital stay. 30% of the patients who have a hip fracture, they die during the first year. And half of the patients who have a hip fracture, they die in the 3 years after the hip fracture. So it's not only a bone fracture, it's really huge impact in the quality of life.
Why do they die?
It's because it's like suddenly you have put on 10 or 15 years on the life.
So it's the system that becomes.
It's not the system. You get nervous, then you get your confidence, then you don't walk much. So it's like a wheel of disaster. Then you are in your house, you fell, you cannot walk, you are lying on the floor, waiting for help to come, and this makes a lot of impact on the bone. Then you're in a hospital. We came there, we place you in the OR, the surgery. You have pain, and then they say, "Come on, let's go and walk. You need to walk. No, it's the head. Come on, let's walk."
So, but basically, it's not because of the fracture directly. It's because in the end, all the system
It's
goes down.
because it's a concept. We know this concept as a functional reserve. You have probably a huge functional reserve.
Not that much.
So if you lose in this episode 30% of your functional reserve, you still have. But if you don't have that, you are very afraid. Almost, this is very interesting. You can understand that once you have suffered a fracture, you cannot take a shower by yourself or maybe just dress yourself. 20% of the patients who had a hip fracture, they are not able to feed themselves. And you say, what's the link between the hand and the hip? It's because it's an overload. It's over.
I think we are having a very good time. Would you mind more questions?
Oh, do you think that I like the topic? Yeah. So I
Oh,
Okay,
go ahead.
I don't take the risk. So one of the things, for example, when I think it's true. You just tell me if I'm right.
You are the boss.
When you do,
You are the boss. I will say.
when you do exercise, for example, I used to do weightlifting. It doesn't look like, but my old time. So usually the bone gets more denser, not denser. So, but one of the things is that when people do running, when they do marathons or they keep all running all their lives, in the end, they have a fracture in the meniscus.
It's because there are totally different clinical situations. If you think and running in terms of bone quality, it's a really good sport.
Yeah.
But if you are thinking in terms of the joint,
Okay.
then it's not so good a sport. So,
Okay.
it depends where you put the
So
focus.
the bone improves with impact or with, but,
sure.
but the joints do not.
The joint, the cartilage is the tissue that covers the bone, and it's a kind of a sponge. When you're jumping or running, it absorbs all the forces, and when you unload, it reinforces. This is what the cartilage does. Essentially, it's a big sponge. You press force, and it goes like this. But when you get older, or maybe you have a fracture or whatever disease on the cartilage, this function is not so well, and this fluid comes into the bone, and then this makes a response, inflammatory response of the bone, and then that you start a war between your bone and your cartilage, and this makes the osteoarthritis. That's the reason why the word in English is osteoarthritis. It is always means inflammation, and is a degenerative disease, and we name it osteoarthrosis, which is degenerative, but for sure there's inflammation. So concerning bone quality, impact, run, jump. Concerning joints, swim, all these things. Combination is a good thing. One day weight you do swim, the other one you run.
More questions? Well, I must to say that I don't remember a talk like this with so many questions. It's very long in that sense. So it means that the talk has been very motivating, has been very interesting, and that's why we thank your presence here. Thank you for being here in your house. Thank you.
Thank you.
Es verdad que no, que siempre pregunta, pero no siempre